So everyone knows that feeling, right? When the news just feels like nonstop negativity, it can be easy to get bogged down. But
Yeah.
today on this deep dive, we're taking a totally different approach,
Right.
exploring a Reddit thread that's all about reasons to be optimistic about the future. And this one came directly from you, our listeners.
Yeah, and what I find really fascinating about this thread is that it's not coming from, like, experts or politicians or anything.
Right.
It's everyday people,
Exactly.
just like sharing their own personal reasons for hope.
Yes, exactly. It's like this breath of fresh air, all these positive vibes coming from real people.
Uh-huh.
I'm really excited to dig into all these perspectives.
Yeah.
So the thread is titled, "With all of the negative headlines dominating the news these days, it can be difficult to spot signs of progress. What makes you optimistic about the future?" So where should we start with this?
Well, there was one major thing that really stood out to me, and that was all the incredible advancements happening in medicine right now. There's all this energy around the potential to cure diseases that have plagued humanity for centuries, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Like that one comment about Stanford medicine curing 90 out of 90 mice with various cancers using a single injection.
Right.
That's got to be a total game changer, right?
It's definitely a huge breakthrough, but it's important to understand the context.
Okay.
What they did was use two agents that stimulate the immune system,
Okay.
and they work together to basically train the body's own defenses
Mhm.
to recognize and attack cancer cells.
So it's like almost like
Yeah.
training the body
Exactly,
to
exactly.
quickly heal itself.
Yeah, and while this is incredibly promising research,
Yeah.
it is still in the early stages.
Gotcha.
They haven't actually started human trials yet.
So, okay, so you're saying we shouldn't get ahead of ourselves, but it's still a pretty big deal.
Absolutely. I think it gives us a real glimpse into a future where cancer might not be the threat it is today. Imagine, a world where cancer is more like a manageable condition rather than a death sentence.
That would be incredible.
Yeah.
So, besides that, what other medical advancements from the thread kind of caught your eye?
Oh, there's a ton. I mean, there's a lot of excitement around gene therapy and CRISPR technology. CRISPR is basically this incredibly precise gene editing tool that could potentially correct genetic defects that cause diseases.
Right, right.
It's almost like molecular surgery.
So, wow, so we're talking about actually curing genetic diseases at their root.
Exactly. Yeah. Incredible.
It's mind-blowing. And then there's the progress with artificial organs. Think about what that could mean for people who need transplants.
Right, that would be life-changing for so many people.
Yeah.
Did anyone in the thread actually talk about their personal experiences with any of these medical advancements? Yeah, there was someone who mentioned getting a new cornea thanks to, all the advancements in eye surgery. And they actually shared how it dramatically improved their vision and like their whole quality of life.
It's so inspiring to see these advancements actually like directly impacting people's lives.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
That's great. And it's not just about the really high-tech stuff either, right? I mean,
Yeah.
even simple things. I saw in the thread a new drug that was approved in Japan that claims to cure the flu in a single day.
Right.
And that kind of sparked a lot of discussion.
Yeah, it did. I mean, of course, we always have to be cautious about any claims like that until there's more research.
Yeah, sure, sure.
But still, the idea that we could be closer to a cure for something like the flu, that's pretty exciting.
Right. It's like we're entering this whole new era of medical possibilities.
Totally.
And it really makes you think about what life could be like for future generations if this pace of progress keeps going.
Yeah, for sure. It's a time of incredible potential for medicine. But it's not the only area where people are finding reasons to be optimistic. What about environmental progress?
Oh, yeah.
Anything in that area stand out to you?
Oh, for sure. It was such a relief to see people talking about how bee populations are actually starting to rebound in some areas.
Right.
I mean, bees are so essential for our ecosystem. Any positive news on that front is like a huge win.
It is, yeah. Bees pollinate a huge portion of our crops.
Yeah.
So their decline was a major concern. But it seems like thanks to conservation efforts and just growing awareness, things are starting to look up.
Uh-huh.
And it really shows that we can make a difference when we put our minds to it.
And speaking of positive environmental shifts, there was a lot of talk about renewable energy too, especially solar power.
Oh, yeah.
Someone even mentioned that in Australia, the price of solar has dropped so much that tons of people are installing panels even without government subsidies.
That's a great example of how market forces can actually drive environmental change.
Yeah.
When renewable energy becomes more affordable and accessible, it benefits everyone, the
Yeah.
environment, and the economy.
It's like, why wouldn't you switch to solar at that point?
Exactly.
It's cheaper, it's good for the planet, it's a no-brainer.
Exactly. And it's not just about the economics either.
Right.
There's a growing awareness of just how urgent climate change is,
Yeah.
and people are actively looking for ways to, reduce their carbon footprint.
Yeah, it feels like we're finally realizing that we can't just sit back and expect someone else to fix it.
Right.
We all have to play a part.
Absolutely. And that's what makes stories like the revival of the American chestnut tree so inspiring.
Yeah, we're
It was
practicing.
practically wiped out by blight a century ago.
Yeah.
But now, thanks to all these scientists and conservationists who have been working so hard, it's actually making a comeback.
Yeah, it's a real testament to what we can achieve with enough effort,
Yeah,
right?
it is.
Even when things seem hopeless, we can still turn them around.
Exactly. And it shows that we have the power to heal the planet
Yeah.
and reverse at least some of the damage we've done. It takes time and effort and a lot of dedication, but it is possible.
That actually, reading about the chestnut tree, it makes me think about other environmental initiatives that are happening right now. What are some local efforts that you find hopeful?
Well, actually, just in my community, there's been a big push to create more green spaces and community gardens.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So it's not just about these big scientific breakthroughs, it's
Mhm.
also about people in their own communities taking action to make a difference.
Exactly.
How about that?
Recognizing that every effort, no matter how small, contributes to, a healthier planet.
So we've talked about these amazing advancements in medicine, all this progress happening in the environmental sector.
Uh-huh.
But there's another big theme from this Reddit thread that I really want to explore, and that's the positive social and cultural shifts that are taking place.
Yes, there were a lot of interesting conversations happening around that topic. What specifically caught your eye?
The growing awareness and acceptance of mental health issues,
Oh, yeah.
that really stood out to me. It feels like we're finally starting to move past the stigma
Yeah.
and create space for people to talk openly and honestly about mental well-being.
Right. It's a huge step in the right direction. I
Yeah,
mean, the mental health has been, shrouded in shame and silence for so long.
for sure.
But now people are more comfortable talking about their struggles and seeking help.
Absolutely. And there was this one story in the thread
Hmm.
that really touched me. It was about a boss who supported their employee through a really tough mental health challenge.
Oh, wow.
And instead of judging them, they offered understanding and support. And because of that, the employee was able to actually thrive.
That's an amazing example of how empathy and understanding can create a ripple effect of positive change.
Yeah.
Just recognizing that we're all human, we all go through tough times, right?
Yeah.
And a little compassion goes a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just about individual acts of kindness either. There were also comments about how it's becoming so much easier to travel the world,
Right.
how that has the potential to connect people from different cultures.
Yeah, that's important. Experiencing different cultures firsthand, can break down barriers and help create a sense of shared humanity.
Yeah, like we're becoming more interconnected
Yeah.
and understanding as a global community.
Right. And it's not even just about traveling to these far-off places. Even, like, engaging with online communities well, like Reddit can
Yeah.
expose us to different perspectives
Yeah.
and make us question our own
This
assumptions.
is so true. I mean, here we are
Right.
diving deep into this Reddit thread that is giving us so much to think about.
Yeah,
It's like we're having this global conversation about hope and progress.
absolutely. Yeah. It really speaks to the power of these online platforms to connect people,
Yeah.
share knowledge and
Yeah.
amplify those positive voices.
Absolutely. And that brings us to another theme that really stood out in the thread, which is the importance of everyday acts of kindness.
Oh, yeah.
There was this quote that really resonated with me. It's the small, everyday deeds of ordinary folk that keep the darkness at bay.
I love that.
It's beautiful.
It is. It reminds us that we don't have to be superheroes to make a difference.
Yeah.
Even the smallest acts of compassion,
Mm-hmm.
can create a ripple effect.
And it makes me wonder, what are some small acts of kindness that you've seen lately?
Oh, just the other day, I was walking down the street and I saw someone helping an elderly person carry their groceries.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah, it was so simple, but it really warmed my heart. It's those little things,
Yeah,
they can just brighten someone's day and
absolutely.
make the world a little bit better.
I love that. And thinking about our listeners, what are some ways that you, our listeners, can contribute to a more positive future through your actions? Like, think about the small things you could do every day. Maybe it's just smiling at a stranger, helping a neighbor out, or
Yeah.
even just speaking up against injustice.
Yeah.
all these seemingly small acts can create a ripple effect of positivity that goes way beyond ourselves.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that each of us
Yeah.
has the power to be a force for good,
Yeah.
and that together, all our little acts of kindness can create a more hopeful and bright future for everyone.
And on that note, I think we're going to take a quick break. But don't go anywhere. When we come back, we'll keep digging into this awesome Reddit thread and uncover even more reasons for optimism.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Before the break, we were talking about those everyday acts of kindness and how much of an impact they can have.
Yeah, totally.
So did you see any specific examples in the thread that stood out to you?
Oh, definitely. There was one about someone who quit smoking.
Oh, wow.
And they were talking about how tough it was. And then a bunch of other people jumped in to share their own success stories and offer support. It was really sweet.
Yeah.
It just reminded me that even those personal victories
Right.
can be really inspiring to other people to make positive changes in their own lives.
Absolutely. There's such a strong sense of community in this thread.
Yeah.
It really shows how connected we all are. When we share our struggles and our wins,
Yeah.
it creates this amazing space for support and empowerment.
And speaking of inspiring stories, there was one from someone who had been hit by a car.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I know, right? Suffered some serious injuries.
Wow.
But they made this incredible recovery.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and they even shared before and after photos,
Oh, wow.
which really just drove home the point of how resilient humans can be.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's amazing to think about how those kinds of injuries, that used to be debilitating or even fatal, can now be treated so effectively
It's incredible.
that people can regain their mobility and quality of life.
It's a testament to the advances we've made in medical care
For sure.
and rehabilitation.
Yeah, totally. It's a true testament to the human spirit
Yeah.
and our ability to overcome pretty much anything, right?
Totally. But, I think sometimes those reasons for optimism aren't always about these big achievements.
Right.
Sometimes it's the simple things
Yeah,
that bring us joy and comfort.
totally.
Someone mentioned finding comfort in reruns of Bob Ross and Mr. Rogers.
Oh, that's nice.
I thought that was sweet.
Yeah, there's something so calming about those shows, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's like a reminder of simpler times when kindness and gentleness were front and center.
I think it speaks to our need for connection
Uh-huh.
and a sense of wonder,
Absolutely.
especially in a world that can feel so chaotic sometimes.
Oh, yeah. And speaking of wonder, there was a lot of excitement in the thread about space exploration and the possibility of humans actually landing on Mars in our lifetime.
That would be incredible.
I know, it's like a childhood dream come true.
Yeah.
It really captures the imagination. It reminds us that there are so many possibilities out there beyond our planet.
Yeah, human ingenuity and our desire to explore.
Yeah.
It's really inspiring.
I saw someone even mention wanting to play Dungeons and Dragons in space.
That's amazing. I love it.
Now, that's an adventure I'd sign up for.
Right. It shows our playful nature,
Yeah.
our need to be creative,
Yeah.
explore,
Mm-hmm.
connect with each other,
Yeah.
even in these fantastical settings.
This might seem like a strange transition,
Okay.
but it reminded me of another reason for optimism that came up in the thread.
Okay.
The fact that statistically, we live in the most peaceful time in human history.
It's an important point because it's so easy to focus on the conflicts we see, in the news and everything.
Yeah.
But the overall trend
Yeah.
globally is toward less violence,
Right.
more cooperation.
It's a good reminder that progress is possible,
Yeah.
even when things seem really challenging. And it's not just about the absence of war either, right? The thread also highlighted some of the amazing social changes happening around the world.
Right, since 1990, the number of children who die before their 5th birthday has been cut in half.
Whoa.
It's an incredible accomplishment.
It's hard to even fathom how many young lives have been saved because of advances in healthcare,
Yeah.
nutrition, sanitation.
It's amazing.
It really speaks to our collective effort, right?
It does.
To improve global health,
Yeah.
reduce poverty.
For sure. It shows that we can make a real difference when we work together.
Absolutely. And it's not just about saving lives either.
Right.
The thread talked about how the proportion of people living in extreme poverty has also decreased dramatically.
It's incredible. It shows the impact of economic development,
Yeah.
education, access to resources.
These positive changes are happening all around us,
They are.
even if they're not always making headlines.
Yeah.
It's like that saying, the good news is often quiet and subtle. The bad news is always loud.
It's so true.
Yeah.
I think we need to be more mindful of where we focus our attention.
Yeah.
We have to actively seek out those stories of hope and progress.
Absolutely.
It's easy to get caught up in the negativity bias,
Yeah.
but there's so much good happening in the world.
Oh, for sure. And speaking of education, the thread mentioned that over 90% of children now attend primary school worldwide.
Wow, that's incredible.
I know it's a huge leap forward in terms of access to education.
It really is. It shows the transformative power of education
Yeah.
and its potential to empower future generations.
And we can't forget about the strides we've made in gender equality.
Right.
The thread pointed out that women now make up more than a fifth of parliament members globally,
It's progress.
which, we still have a long way to go,
Of course.
but it's definitely a sign that we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
about challenging those traditional power structures
Mm-hmm.
and creating a society that's more inclusive.
Yeah. And representative of everyone.
It's inspiring to see these changes on a global scale.
It is.
But I think it's also important to acknowledge that progress isn't always linear.
Right.
There are setbacks.
Ours.
There are challenges.
Yeah.
Sometimes it feels like we take 2 steps back for every 1 step forward.
Yeah, that's true. Progress isn't always a smooth, upward climb. There are
Mhm.
going to be obstacles and setbacks.
Yeah.
What matters is that we don't lose sight of the big picture
Yeah.
and that we keep striving for a better future.
There was this one comment in the thread that really resonated with me. It said, "The world over consists mostly of people with similar wants and similar needs, no matter where they hail from or what they look like, and the vast majority of the time, it just works."
I love that.
Right. There's something really comforting about that thought.
Absolutely. It highlights our shared humanity
Yeah,
and reminds us that we have more in common than we often realize.
for
We're
sure.
all in this together.
And we have to work together to overcome these challenges.
And that brings up another takeaway from the thread.
Yep.
Simply acknowledging the good in the world.
Oh, yeah.
That in itself can be an act of optimism.
Absolutely.
It's easy to get so caught up in what's wrong
Yeah.
that we forget to appreciate what's right.
It's so true. Our perception really shapes our reality.
Yeah.
But when we choose to focus on the positive,
Uh-huh.
we're going to see it more,
Yeah.
appreciate it more,
Yeah.
and contribute to it more.
Absolutely. So instead of dwelling on all the negative stuff, let's take a moment to just think about all the good.
Yeah.
Like someone in the thread said, we are surrounded by a lot of good.
That's a good reminder.
Yeah, we just need to remind ourselves of that sometimes.
Absolutely.
So here's a challenge for you, our listeners. Take a minute to think about all the good things in your life, big or small. Maybe it's the people you love, the experiences that bring you joy, the things you're grateful for. What makes you feel optimistic?
It's a great question.
Right. Because when we focus on the positive, we're not ignoring the problems, but we're choosing to approach them from a place of strength and hope.
Exactly.
It's about remembering that even when things are tough, there's still so much beauty and kindness and goodness in the world.
And it's such a powerful perspective to hold on to.
And sharing those good things with others,
Oh, yeah.
that can make such a difference too.
It can.
Maybe it's just telling someone you appreciate them, or sharing a story that inspires you,
Right.
or even just smiling at a stranger.
Yeah, it's about creating this ripple effect of positivity.
Absolutely.
When we choose to focus on the good
Mhm.
and then share it with others,
Mm-hmm.
we're making the world a more hopeful and compassionate place.
I love that.
It's a great reminder that even in the midst of darkness, there's always light to be found.
So well said. And on that note, I think we're ready for the final part of our deep dive into this Reddit thread full of optimism.
Sounds good to me.
All right, we're back for the final part of our deep dive into this treasure trove of optimism from Reddit.
I have to say, after spending all this time with these hopeful stories and perspectives,
Yeah.
I'm feeling pretty energized. It's amazing how just shifting your focus can make such a difference.
I know, right? It's like we've been given this antidote to all the negativity that we see in the news all the time.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things I've taken away from this is that progress is happening all around us,
It is.
often in these really quiet and subtle ways.
I think that's a really important point. We tend to focus on the big dramatic things, but real change often happens gradually,
Right.
It's that slow and steady progress, even when it's hard to notice.
Yeah, and that comment we talked about earlier, the good news is often quiet and subtle. The bad news is always loud.
Right.
It really makes you think about where we choose to focus our attention.
It does. We have to be more aware of that negativity bias in the media
Yeah,
and actively seek out stories of hope and progress.
like the ones we've been talking about.
Exactly like the ones in this Reddit thread.
Yeah, filled with those personal stories of resilience and kindness and positive change that's happening all over the world.
It's a good reminder that we're not alone in wanting a better future.
And it's not just about reading or hearing these stories, it's
Mhm.
about creating our own and sharing them.
Yeah,
We can all be part of spreading optimism by just highlighting the good that we see.
absolutely. We all have a voice,
Uh-huh.
and we can use it to amplify those positive messages.
So, as we wrap up our deep dive into this really uplifting Reddit thread, we want to leave you with this thought.
Okay.
In a world that can often feel overwhelmed by negativity, how can we all actively look for and share stories of hope and progress?
That's the question, isn't it?
What do you think?
Maybe start your own reasons for optimism list.
Yeah.
Write down all the things that give you hope,
Yeah,
the positive changes you see happening, the stories that inspire you.
I love that.
Share those reasons with others. Talk about them with your friends and family. Post them on social media or just, you know, quietly reflect on them yourself.
When we make that effort to look for the good and share it,
Yeah,
we can shift our perspective,
absolutely.
create a more positive environment,
Yeah,
and contribute to a better future for everyone.
that's what it's all about.
That's what this whole deep dive has been about. It's
Yeah,
about remembering that even in the midst of challenges, there's always a reason to be hopeful.
always.
So until next time, stay curious, stay hopeful, and keep looking for those reasons for optimism.